but a few. Ah, yes, reporting probably. And we felt the time was right ahead of the autumn and return of cold weather to reintroduce the Energy Collaborate, starting with a focus on thermal imaging and draft busting. So with thermal imaging, for the past 2 years, we've partnered with Dale, the county retrofit lead, on providing thermal imaging training. And so far, over 80 members of our community groups and other organisations have taken part, and 9 groups are actively setting up or involved in a thermal imaging campaign in their communities. And Low Carbon Hub has 2 thermal cameras that can be borrowed free of charge to any of our community groups. And I think summing up Draughtbusters is quite hard, but it's because it's different for each group. But basically, it's a service that was started by Reading City Council that aims to combat energy poverty by reducing heat loss in people's homes. And it does more than signpost, though, to other organisations and helps directly by training volunteers from community groups to go into people's homes, assess and fix areas of drafts and cold spots, which helps people to feel warmer and spend less on their money and heating. There are Draughtbusters projects up and running or in the process of being set up in Wallingford, Wantage, Kidlington, East Oxford, and Abingdon. And those are the ones that I know about. There could be others. And we'll be hearing from some of those groups shortly, along with options for funding. So we've got some great speakers this evening, and Catherine will be doing a sort of big Q&A at the end, but she will be taking any questions after each speaker. So if you have a burning question you want to ask, that's the time to do it. And also you can use the chat function. So I think that's enough from me for now. And over to our first contributor, which is Aaron from Low Carbon East Oxford. And Low Carbon East Oxford, they attended one of our thermal imaging training sessions and created a successful campaign in East Oxford. They're very modest about it, but I think it was very successful. They applied for a small grant from Low Carbon Hub to purchase materials to implement some of the measures directly into people's homes that were identified through the thermal image campaign. So I think it's really interesting that one has led to the other there. So over to you, Aaron.
Thanks. Shall I share my screen for the slides?
Do you want me to, or do you want to? I'm happy either way.
If you've got them there, yeah, that's great. Thanks.
Yeah, I can do that.
So, yeah, my name's Aaron Anstey. I'm with Low Carbon East Oxford. Thanks. So, yeah, first of all, who we are. And I'll talk a bit about the energy saving side of what Low Carbon East Oxford do, and then the thermal imaging campaigns and what we're moving on to now, which is the draft busting for 2025 and next steps. So yeah, that's our website. We send out a newsletter, and some of the activities we get involved with are the Repair Cafe. So there's a photo coming up next of East Oxford Farmers Market where we help out there. We also help out with tree programs that are done in the area. But the energy side of things, what we've been doing recently for the last 2 years that I've been part of Low Carbon East Oxford, are the thermal imaging campaigns. So the first year that we did one, I think we sent about 1,000 leaflets across East Oxford. So there's a map actually, it could be the next slide. Oh, so this is the other thing that we do with energy. It's the stalls, the energy saving stalls. So we do that at East Oxford Farmers Market and Temple Square shopping centre. Just the next slide, please. So yeah, the thermal imaging, the first year we did it, we just sent out 1,000 leaflets and we had about 30 households that replied, and we did the thermal imaging of those houses and then had a feedback event at the old schoolhouse off Magdalen Road in East Oxford. It was a great event, just in terms of the first time we'd done it really. So it was, we felt it went well. And then the second one we did, we actually got someone in our group to ask people on their street, basically. That was like Percy Street and also Hertford Street, Barnet Street, just in that small area. And that worked really well because when we did the feedback events, people all came along and it was a if you just go to the next slide, well, it essentially is a great community building event because people lived on the same street, they never spoke to each other before, and suddenly there they were, catching up and discussing how they can save energy. And obviously, a lot of the houses are all the same in that area, so they have similar sort of measures you could do, like draft proofing measures for, Victorian terraced houses. So this is an East Oxford heat loss map. It just shows you the area that we cover really. It's that area sort of Cowley Road, Iffley Road, around there, and a lot of Victorian terraced houses, very drafty, and lots of uninsulated solid wall properties. So, and actually for the thermal imaging, for the Draughtbusters campaign, we're actually going to look at as well at Florence Park and the Divinity Road area, Iffley Meadows, as well. So that's one takeaway. Doing it on a street by street basis, not only do you get people from a local area, it's also less work because you can do the thermal imaging in like 2 nights because it's just one street, two street. So it doesn't take long at all. So it makes it a lot easier rather than moving across a bigger area. So just the next slide. Yeah, so what we noticed doing the thermal imaging was that doors are a key thing. Windows, those side alleyways between the houses, often that's quite a thin wall. So we could see that, that was a noticeable area. But one of the things that the two photos at the bottom there, obviously the red shows where most heat's being lost and the white. That's showing where there's a radiator to the side of the wall and heat's moving through the wall and being lost to outside. So one of the things we did was just to fit radiator foil for free onto those houses that we found. So we actually imaged about 25 houses, and there were 14 that showed the radiator coming through the walls, often on the bay windows, but also on the first floor, under the front windows. So we were able to fit radiator foil there. And then obviously the feedback events, maybe this is the next slide again. Yeah, we're able to get people around the table and share information with them, and they go away and hopefully do some measures, but we're never quite sure actually what happened after the event. And we thought, well, this is all very good. It's great to do this sort of thing, but if it's not having much effect, then, or that we know of, then, has it been worth it? Who knows? Maybe there's a different way of doing things. So, that's when we started to hear about Draughtbusters around the same time, because I think Sustainable Wanted did a talk in Botley a year or two ago. So that was on our radar. And then also there's £500 funding from Low Carbon Hub, which we applied for. So that then has given us this opportunity to actually do some concrete measures in people's houses. So we know things are happening. We have got feedback from people over, after the events, and yeah, there was people were doing things, but it did seem there's a bit of inertia around actually getting the draft proofing side of things done. So initially, just go to the next slide, thanks. This was the progress. This is the process we got to measuring success, and then we had the next steps. So yeah, we just wanted to know really which houses to target. How do we go about that? So initially we looked at the photos from our thermal imaging and identified houses that we could drop leaflets through, the ones that had the leaky doors and the windows. And a bit of good news, the first house I went to had completely new windows, completely new insulated door, double glazing. So it's really encouraging to think, first of all, I thought, oh, this is no good. They don't need any draft proofing. But then I realized actually they've taken on board what we've been saying at the event. So that was good. And then as I went to other houses, it was a case really of the people who sometimes sign up for these events are already doing some stuff, so, and I could see that the other houses that had the old wooden door and the single glazed windows that could really do with the help. So we have been leafleting those as well. And also just getting advice from, I think, Sustainable Wantage helped with suggesting they use Better Housing, Better Health to get referrals for the houses they went to do draft busting at. So yeah, we may look at that. But just to say, we're at the very early stages at the moment, and we've had one response so far of someone who wants us to go and help, which is great. But yeah, we need to get the word out there a bit more in our area. So we're going to put some posters up in, key places. And ideally want to get about 20 houses in total that we could do before the winter, ideally. So just the next slide. So first of all, what materials do we need? Initially, we started looking at things like we'll get chimney sheet, those things you can put up a chimney that just stop the draft coming down, and decent letterbox covers. But quickly realized we only needed like 10 of those and we'd use up most of our £500, well, a lot of our £500 budget. So Sustainable wanted again, very helpful in providing what they use as their materials. We see it as a lot more, kind of less expensive stuff that will make the difference, So I've got a huge list and we're just starting to gather those materials now. And Chimney Sheep have offered us to send us some samples as well, so we can use those without having to pay anything. The other one is, how do we find the people to help? That's one of the big barriers really to us doing this draft busting initially. It's just myself at the moment, so we are trying to recruit new people. One of our members is with the University of Oxford, so they're trying to get some of their masters and PhD students if they're interested in helping. And maybe we could work with a neighbouring group who could also perhaps lend a hand. When do we do it? Well, hopefully get it all done before the winter. But certainly by this time next year, we'd like to have said we've got all the, at least 20 houses done. When do we do it? Well, probably similar to how other draft busting groups, they seem to go like once a month, maybe, for a couple of hours and try and do 1 or 2 houses in that time. That'll probably be manageable for us. So yeah, it's exciting. We're looking forward to helping people with putting in simple draft busting measures. So if you want to find out more, we've got a website, the Low Carbon East Oxford there, or you can find us through the Low Carbon Hub. Thank you very much.
Oh, that's excellent. Thanks so much, Aaron, for just taking us through all of those steps. And
in the interest of time, let's hold questions until we get through presentations. But if you want to put them in the chat so you don't lose your thought, please very much do as well.
Okay. And I'm just very interested to hear that you seem to be the only volunteer doing it, which is that correct? Right. Okay, because that was going to be one. How many people do you need to do this? And it's just you. Okay, that's really interesting. And so we'll hold those thoughts and come back to them later. And so next, we're going to hear from Kidlington Eco Group from Anthony Cooper. So Kidlington Eco Group formed, I think, about 2 or 3 years ago. They're one of our more recent groups, and they identified a gap in awareness of energy efficiency in homes in their community. And inspired by existing schemes in Wantage and Reading, they set up Draughtbusters with help from Cherwell District Council and their parish council. So Anthony is one of Kidlington Draughtbusters trained volunteers. So it's going to be great to hear from him and maybe what attracted him to the project, what his experience is so far, and if he has any advice for other groups. So over to you, Anthony.
Yeah, don't do it. Yeah, we set it up. We formed in late 2024. As Kathy said, off as part of Kidlington Eco Group. It was off the back of Tony Cowling's highly successful Reading Draughtbusters scheme. And Tony kindly came and gave us a talk and did some training. And he also left us a few basic tools and sample materials, the sort of thing they use, to get started with. The problem was we then had a lot of paperwork to do. There was vulnerable persons training, DBS checks, insurance, which initially was a problem because Kidlington Eco Group didn't have a bank account. So for the first month, we actually ran as a satellite group off of Tony Cowling's Reading group. Because at the moment, you've got a situation nowadays where banks don't really want to give community groups a bank account, because unless you're putting thousands of pounds through the account every month, you're not going to make them any money. They finally managed to get that sorted in January. So from mid-January, we had our own bank account. So we now got our own insurance. Because without a bank account, you can't have an insurance policy. But having done all the DBS checks and training, so vulnerable persons training, I got a basic toolkit together. I bought some initial stock of foam seal strips, P-strips and stuff like that, sort of things I felt we were going to need. And we did our first visit middle of December. Which obviously isn't the best time to start doing things just before Christmas, because it's not what, people aren't really looking to draft-proof their homes in the sort of Christmas New Year period. So we got off to quite a slow start, having done all the publicity material. But we've done a few since then. One of the problems we've got is there's only two of us doing it, myself and Bob Pedley. We go out in pairs because of safeguarding, and a lot of the people we're going into are elderly and vulnerable people. So we go out as a pair, certainly on an initial visit. So trying to coordinate the visit for when we're both available and the client's available was a bit tricky. And Alison Street does a wonderful job of coordinating that and arranging the appointments for us. But one of the things, or the things that we're finding is the biggest problem, is not what you'd expect in this area. You'd expect it to be rotten or dodgy old wooden doors and frames, and it's not. It's actually UPVC windows and doors that are causing the biggest problems. Either old UPVC from 25, 30 years ago that's now warped, sagged, and worn seals and so on, or modern, relatively new, but really cheap quality UPVC, where often we're seeing things like the opening elements are so small and so tightly cut that the seals barely cover the opening aperture around the window and door. And once they've dropped a little bit, particularly with patio doors and so on, you can actually get quite a gap around the seal in places, and the adjustment on the hinges is right on the limit then to bring it into line to seal the door up again. We've also had problems with warped double glazing with no reinforcing bars in it, where you get seals which have got a big gap around the centre and tight fitting in the corners. And the only way you can really fix that is by putting a foam strip under the flipper seals to push them out along the wider area, so that you basically then make them seal again around the whole periphery of the door or window, because there's no one replacement seal that will cover a varying gap. So we've done one recently. It's not gone completely dead in the summer. We've just done one about 10 days ago. Our next challenge is to try and boost the take up. So we've got a stand at the Kidlington Gala event in July. So we're hoping to be able to get more people interested then. But what we really need is more volunteers to do it, because with only two of us, it's creating a bit of a problem. People are having to wait 2 or 3 weeks for us to get around to do the visits. We're looking at the option of doing thermal imaging, but of course that then doubles our workload, because with only two of us doing it, we've got to go out in an evening session to do the thermal imaging, and then find a time for a second visit to go back and do any remedials. So with only 2 volunteers, it's going to double our workload. So that's going to create a bit of a problem for us. 3 points I thought of that sort of things to take away. It takes longer than you think if you're setting up from scratch to create your advertising leaflets, social media posts, do your training, DBS checks, get your bank account and insurance and everything sorted. Visits where you've got to do remedial work, we allow 2 hours per visit. And if you've got 2 to 3 doors or windows to deal with, you will use that 2 hours. Tony, when he did the training, he said, "Oh yeah, we allocate, we do 2 or 3 houses in the morning, you know." And it's like, on our experience, there's no way you can do 2 or 3. We do one. We allow one appointment in a half day because we don't know how long it's going to take, and so you can't allow more than 2 hours for one person for a visit in one half day session. It's no good programming another one for 2 hours later because you might overrun. So the other thing is, don't forget to take a step ladder with you, because it's not good form to ask the client to borrow their dining chair to reach the trapdoor in the loft. And if you have to do work on seals outside, you got to remember the patio or outside paving is lower than the floor level inside. So whereas you might be able to reach the top of a window or door inside, you won't when you're outside. So always take a set of steps with you. So that's kind of a rundown of what we've done. Sorry, I've got no slides or anything to share. I'm not that technical.
Oh no, I think it's a mixture of slides and talking is the very best option, I think. And thank you so much for that very honest account of your experience so far. And it's really interesting about the lack of volunteers so far, and really, so I think we should really think about what we can do to help you to increase your volunteer take up. And I think that just sharing all the projects more widely will probably attract more people. So we'll look into that. But so the CAG Low Carbon Hub, we can probably help promote.
I have created various forms and spreadsheets of things like a standard checklist that we use. So when we do a visit, we tick off the checklist. We get the client to put their signature at the bottom, and Bob and I both sign it. We photograph it, and we give the client the piece of paper, the actual form itself, and we just email the photo to Alison, who then securely files it in accordance with our GDPR policy. She hangs on to it in case there's any future comeback or reference.
That's really good.
We leave the actual form with clients. So as Draughtbusters, we don't keep any confidential data about the clients we've visited. Yes,
that's excellent advice there, and also really good practical hints there about stepladder, that sort of thing that it's just good to know that in the first offing. And I think, Draughtbusters as a whole can be a little bit daunting for community groups. So I think the approach of starting off small is a really good one, and then see how it goes and then grow on your experience. So that's great to hear that. Thanks very much indeed, Anthony. And I'm going to leap straight on to our next speaker, which is Joe Harvey from Sustainable Wantage. And I think one of the best ways to get the courage to set up a campaign, as we've heard, is to be inspired by someone who's already done it. And in a testament to community spirit, shared all their materials and templates. And that group is Sustainable Wantage. There are many protocols and paperwork to arrange if you're going to go into people's homes, from DBS checks to insurance, which I think is a really important point. And all of those things carry some risk. So we're delighted to hand over to Jo from Sustainable Wantage, who's provided support for several of our groups, and we've already heard. And she's going to talk us through how they overcame some of those key risks. So over to you, Jo.
Hi, everybody, and big thanks to Anthony for giving the insider view of what a Draughtbuster does, because I'm very much backroom admin on this kind of stuff. So I can't tell you what happens out on the draft bus quite so well as Anthony can, but I can tell you what happens on the admin side. So in the next slide, please, Catherine. We have, like Anthony was saying, a visit checklist, but we also have a step before that, which is possibly something that you're doing as well, Anthony. We get in touch when we book a client in, and we get some information out of them up front. So what are they particularly wanting us to look at, how big their house is, whether they've got dogs, and if so, can they be in another room when we turn up? Is there parking nearby? Is it easy to find? Various things like that. And if we can get the right information up front, then when the Draughtbusters actually go and do the visit, it's much more straightforward for them. So we found that to be a really, really useful stage. We first set up with our local advice centre providing us referrals. It was when the energy prices went through the roof and everyone was having a big panic. And so they had a lot of people contacting them, particularly concerned about fuel bills. And so we had quite a good link in that first year of getting referrals from them. It's been trickier since then. I think our kind of numbers year on year have gradually gone down, but a bit like Anthony was saying, if you can get out there and get the idea in front of people. So we do the energy advice stalls, and we also did the Draughtbusters did a little pop-up in the library at various warm spaces alongside our community larder. And we found that those were the best kind of places to get bookings, particularly at the larder, because Sustainable Wantage run the larder and Sustainable Wantage run the Draughtbusters. Those people were a little bit more ready to listen to us and trust us, I think, because having somebody you don't know coming into your home is quite unnerving. Not everybody is up for doing that. We did try putting a questionnaire out to people in the Sustainable Wantage newsletter to see who wanted help with draft busting. And we found quite a few people in that way who were interested to have the volunteers go around and hear their advice, but didn't actually want them to do anything because they were happy to do it themselves. So that became a slightly different offer. And then each year, after the end of the season, we have a little catch up, the volunteers and I, and go through what worked, what didn't work, what are our ideas for next time. So each year we've kind of come up with a few different groups to try and target. So one year we particularly went round the carers organisations in Wantage, because the carers were going in and visiting a lot of people who were home all the time. So we thought, if those are people, this could be really useful to those people, because obviously it's going to have a much bigger impact. So that's that one. If you want to click onto the next one, please, Catherine. The paperwork side of things. So as Kathy was saying, insurance, really key. We got it added to our insurance basically by saying that we would have various different policies and procedures in place, and also that we would only be doing things that were reversible and things that people could be doing themselves very easily without any particular level of skill. Like they weren't, we didn't have builders and that kind of level of skill going around. They were just volunteers who were happy and comfortable with a bit of DIY and doing very in a way quite simple interventions, I would say. And also we found, because they were things that anybody could do themselves, it didn't matter if we didn't have landlord permission. So we were able to go to housing association houses and do things like put a bit of filler around some windows and make quite a big difference there. And we did have quite a few clients in housing association houses who were told that they had to ask the housing association to come, but the housing association were not coming, or were saying you can't have a new door for another 8 years, for example. And so being able to do little bits and pieces, very low key, so people were reassured they weren't going to have a problem with the housing association, was really, really helpful. So the policies that we have in place anyway for Sustainable Wantage that are relevant to this, we have a health and safety policy, a safeguarding policy, and a confidentiality policy. And those, I think, are really key for this kind of activity. So in terms of health and safety, obviously you need to risk assess for your volunteers so they know what it's okay to do and what you don't want them to be doing. One of the things we had was with the step ladder, we decided we wouldn't have a step a stepladder that was higher than 1 metre, because there's some working at height regulation, and that brought us down a level of risk if we could only use a short stepladder, which was fine because you can stand, even I can stand on a 1 metre stepladder and reach the ceiling. So it turned out to be enough. In terms of safeguarding, we decided that we would DBS check all our volunteers. It wasn't a requirement, but particularly because in the first year we were going into homes of people who were already quite vulnerable. They were already in touch with the advice centre for various different kinds of support. We wanted to be really careful that we were protecting them, but also that we were protecting our volunteers. So we had them DBS checked, and we make sure that they do always go in pairs. And yeah, confidentiality, like Anthony said, really important. You're going to be sharing people's contact details with your volunteers. You need to know that they're going to be treating those appropriately. So one really simple thing, we have an agreement when they've got their visit checklists. They do a few in one bash. They'll tend to go to sort of 2 or 3 houses in a morning. So they have the visit checklist on a clipboard, and it's always face down. So if it's left in the car, if it's left on the side, anything like that, if it's face down, it's not a problem. Just making sure people are aware that they are holding that information and they need to be careful with it. So we do have a volunteer agreement with our volunteers that says things like that. And the visit checklist that Anthony was talking about, and any of that information that we've got, I'm really happy to share with anybody. If you want to take it, adapt it, make it your own. Sometimes it's easier to start from something than start from nothing. So yeah, absolutely no problem. And if you go on to the next slide, that's how to get in touch with me if you want any of that information, or if you do have any further questions.
Oh, thank you very much, Jo. That's fantastic, going through all that. And I know that you've already shared all those materials with quite a few community groups. And I think the key phrase you said there was, it's better to start from something than nothing. It just makes it so much more accessible and easier to get going. So true to her word, you can contact Jo on her email or through me at Low Carbon Hub, and she's really happy to help. And I think to share, because it's a bit of a daunting amount of paperwork there, I think for Sustainable Wanted to share all of their templates and paperwork is a fantastic resource for our community groups. And so thank you so much for that. And so
oh, go ahead. I was just going to say, before we jump to Chloe, should we take any questions sort of specific to the implementation
that's
of Draughtbusters?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Does anyone want to ask any questions now? Are you sure? No? Okay. All right then. So we're just going to go on to potential funding opportunities. And so I was thinking, if the aims of thermal imaging and Draughtbuster campaigns are to help residents understand where their home is leaking heat, and in the case of Draughtbusters, provide them with immediate help, it's also crucial that the residents, I think, know what further action they can take on energy efficiency and what grant funding might be available to help them to install any appropriate measures. And we're going to hear about 2 different types of grant funding. One that helps community groups to set up energy efficiency campaigns in their area, and one that residents can apply for to install the measures, and community groups play a vital part in sharing that information. So we're going to hear from Chloe Bunting from Vale Climate Action Fund, and to hear all of the details of that fund, which I know has historically provided funding for several groups to set up Draughtbusters. So over to you, Chloe.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to speak this evening about Vale's Climate Action Fund. So yeah, my name's Chloe and I'm from the Southern Vale Climate and Biodiversity team, and we lead and deliver this grant scheme at the council. So as Kathy alluded to, so the CAF has previously provided funding towards the Wanted Draughtbusters Draughtbusters project. And we feel that the Draughtbusters model is a particularly good example of a strong fit for this funding scheme, with the fact that it combines kind of simple actions to save energy, reduce carbon emissions, alongside that really key engagement with local residents and educating about all the different measures that they can take themselves, as well as the opportunity for that direct support and action in helping them carry out some of these, so that it ensures that it's accessible for all members of the community. So this slide details the key funding criteria, but in general, we're looking for projects which have benefits for climate and or nature, alongside other community benefits too. So looking at that improved health and well-being and economic well-being as well, for example. The fund has a focus on raising awareness of climate change and inspiring others to take action to protect the planet as well alongside that. If you could flick to the next slide, please. Thank you. So bit of an identical picture to Joe there, who supplied that great image for us that we like to use. So the fund's reach has been designed to be really wide, and work could focus on areas such as energy, waste and consumption, the natural environment, educational, transport and travel. So obviously wider as well than the conversations we're having this evening, if that's of interest to anybody. And another benefit we found with this fund is that it's helped build working relationships. So we've had community organisations that have applied again for new projects or extending the ones that they're doing, taking those further, and many have then showcased these projects and provided learning for others through webinars just like this one. So we've seen some really positive effects from it. So grants are available up to £10,000 for each project, with a minimum of 250. So it's quite a large scale there. So if you wanted to kind of start small, as we've talked about this evening, then that's just as good as kind of going in strong for the high end of the funding. So this particular round is closing very soon, but if you do have a project ready to go and time to complete the application form, please do. The closing date is 30th of June, so that's Monday at midday. And if you do have any questions or want any support over the next couple of days, you can definitely contact the climate action team at the council, and we can support with any advice or top tips for applying. But again, we do anticipate running another round in the next financial year, so 26-27. So that obviously gives a little bit more time to work up a project and kind of think about some of the ideas and advice that people have been sharing this evening. Yeah, so please do approach the climate action team. I've put the email address on the slides there, and happy for that to be sent around. The webpage link there for the Climate Action Fund hosts kind of the key information, links for applying, but also some information on previous projects that we funded and kind of helpful tips for applying. So a good resource to take a look at. Could you flick to the next slide, please? Thank you. So this evening, I just also wanted to highlight that we do have an opportunity to, for community groups and town and parish councils to loan a thermal imaging camera from us. So we have 2 that we can lend out during the colder months, generally during the periods of October to March. And there's no charge for this. We just have to book that in. It is quite popular, so recommend that you get in touch again through our team, and we can facilitate that a bit nearer the time. And if you're attending this evening outside of the Vale, there are some similar funding schemes across some of the other Oxfordshire councils. And also in South Oxfordshire, there are several grant schemes which within them also encourage projects which aim to address climate change and save energy. Details of all of these can be found on the webpage on the slide. But again, please do contact our team if you need any help with signposting or thinking about what's the best fit for your project. If you're looking at one of those South Oxfordshire schemes, we're more than happy to help. So yeah, thank you. I hope that was a helpful kind of whistle-stop tour of the fund, and happy to take any questions, or yeah, please do get in contact.
Oh, thank you very much, Chloe. That was really helpful. And there is just a question in the chat, and that's, is the Climate Action Fund only available for people who live in Vale, or is it South as well, Vale of Whitehorse or South of Vale?
So the Vale, it's just for Vale of Whitehorse. So South have slightly different funding schemes, which are called different things. So for example, we've got the councillor grant scheme, but within that you can apply for very similar projects. They've just got slightly different focuses, but happy to have a conversation about further funding at another point.
Okay, thank you. And when would your next round open?
So
approximately. So
yeah, we haven't penciled in a timeline at this point, but last year's scheme ran at the same time as this one, so we would anticipate that it will be a similar cycle. But if you'd like to be put on the distribution list for kind of direct updates on when it's opening, again, please do send your email through to the email address and we can add you to the distribution list.
okay. I also share those things in the community newsletter, monthly newsletter, which I know you're all avid readers of. It does have funding opportunities like that. So that's great. So thank you very much. And
I have a question, if that's all right.
Oh yes, Catherine. Yes, go
Sorry,
ahead.
I couldn't find where to find the hand to put it up.
Oh, don't worry.
I was wondering about timescale of the mergers or potential mergers for the upcoming unity authorities. Is there any news of that? And will that have an impact on what grants are available and when they're available?
So in terms of kind of future outlook, we've been advised that the proposals that are currently being presented to government wouldn't be decided on until next spring. So I wouldn't anticipate that that would necessarily affect the previous funding round, but everything else going forward, that will be subject to budget review every year. So it will kind of be an emerging picture. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. So now we're just going to hand over to Dale Hoyland, the County Retrofit Lead and General Retrofit Champion, who's going to talk to us, I hope, about the Warmer Homes local grant, which could be very useful indeed, that helps eligible householders to install significant energy efficient measures in their homes. Over to
Thanks,
you.
Kathy. Thank you very much. And again, thank you for having me this evening. So let's see if I can share. If this doesn't work, can you see the slide?
Yeah.
Yep. Ah,
Yeah.
perfect. Okay. Well, that worked better than I thought it might. Okay. So first of all, Warm Homes Local Grant. This is a new grant scheme that we're literally just getting going with. So you can see some of the headlines there. Hopefully that this is owner occupiers and privately renting. This scheme, unlike the previous one, the Home Upgrade Grant, this scheme is both on and off mains gas homes. So vastly wider eligibility than the previous scheme, which was only off gas, so LPG, coal, oil, electricity, etc. This includes mains gas as well. We're targeting it towards an energy performance certificate of a D or worse, and preferably an E or worse, just so that we can do some significant sort of whole house future-proofed interventions. There are some pre-qualified households across certainly Cherwell district and Oxford City. For example, Blackbird Leys, a few parts of Banbury, etc., which are index of multiple deprivation 1 and 2 postcodes. I can probably provide a map of where they are. But otherwise, as a general rule of thumb, £36,000 annual household income or less qualifies, or certain means tested benefits, or we might be able to find eligibility through other routes. For example, ill health exacerbated by a cold or damp home, or number of dependents, things like that. So various routes there. And really, my point about the EPC being E or worse, ideally, is because we've got up to £30,000 per property, which is split between £15,000 for low carbon heating upgrades, so upgrading fossil fuels, getting people off fossil fuels for the climate and ecological emergency, extremely important, and moving them on to either an SLC heat pump or high efficiency storage heaters, whatever's most appropriate for the property. And then there's another £15,000 for everything else, essentially a fabric first approach. So insulation measures, ventilation where needed, solar PV, on-site micro generation where appropriate, etc. And just to say, for privately rented properties, landlords get their first property fully funded and a 50% contribution thereafter. I thought it might be interesting just to see the interest that we've already received in Warm Homes local grants. And you can see, unfortunately, at the bottom of the league table there is West Oxfordshire District Council, or West Oxfordshire District, I should say. So yes, community groups are there, very much welcome more applications, but it's probably, as you would expect, that Cherwell District and Oxford City, where there is a higher prevalence generally of deprivation, that's where the most interest has been received. But yes, South, Vale, West, we'll have a few more applications there. That would be very much welcomed. Registered and interests are open now. I'll put these links in the chat rather than just randomly having them on a slide. We start delivery next month. In fact, probably in the next few days of this month. And it's a 3-year program. So there's plenty of time. We've got plenty of interest for year 1. But for years 2 and 3, we definitely need more applications. And more generally, that first website that I'll drop the link into the chat is oxfordshire.gov.uk/retrofit. That's our general website where you can see links to any programs, any new programs. There's Cozy Homes Oxfordshire on there. There's Warm Homes Local Grant. There's the Energy Saver app, where we've got a subscription service for solar PV and battery. No eligibility there, other than having an electricity smart meter. So yeah, it's a really useful resource, hopefully, to community groups. And I guess that's essentially why that's what I see my role is, that you're doing fantastic work and fantastic volunteering. Greatly appreciated. We want to provide, as do the district councils, having just heard from Chloe as well, we want to provide basically the programs of work that then take you to the next level and maximize the use of that interest that you're gaining. So Draughtbusters is absolutely amazing, and thermal imaging to gather that interest in things, and hopefully these programs of work kind of take to the next level. And just to say as well, quickly on Better Housing, Better Health, for access to Eco4 funding, Great British Insulation Scheme. There's actually quite a few bits and bobs around at the moment. So I would say bhbh.org.uk, 0800 107 0044. The helpline number and the resources there are also really invaluable for you to kind of fall back on and raise awareness of, and hopefully therefore get some real measurable carbon saving and cost saving, fuel poverty alleviation, etc. It all mounts up to really good work. So yeah, I'll drop a few links in the chat, but hopefully that's caught us up slightly on time, Kathy.
Yes, thank you, Dale, for being so efficient there with your delivery. That's fantastic. It's really great to hear about that, and we can start to promote that widely now as it's going to be opening quite soon. There's a question in the chat with which none of us may know the answer to this in a across the board, but we might know individually in our communities and things. And it's with regard to Draughtbusters. Is there any existing data on households going on to do other measures after Draughtbusters? And I think that might be what we're not quite sure about. So that might be something, I think, for Low Carbon Hub and CAG to try to take forward. I'd certainly be very interested in doing that, really, and seeing what led to what. So that could be something that we follow up with.
We did get feedback from one household.
Yeah.
In fact, we've actually used it for an event we're doing in the town centre at the end of July. The lady took part in our first thermal imaging project, in actual fact. And then when we started Draughtbusters, she asked us to visit us simply so that she could show us what she had done. And it was very effective. She has also kept track of the reduction in her energy usage and costs with each new thing that she did. So it's been very interesting looking at that. And we are trying to get hold of people that we visited last winter to see if we can get a reply from them on what differences they have found.
Yeah.
Ongoing work, ongoing.
Okay, thank you very much, Kath. So I think Dale, you've got your hand up, and also David. So I'm not sure
Yep,
who was
just-
first. Dale,
Just
yep.
David's point in the chat. Yes, thank you. I forgot to mention, but yes, we do have leaflets. So hot off the oh, this is not going to work very well, is it? Hot off the press are these Warm Homes Local Grant leaflets. So if anybody would like any of those, then they're available. Also for the Energy Saver app, solar savings. Better housing, better health. We have some nice house-shaped thermometer cards with a little liquid crystal display, etc., etc. Low Carbon
Yes.
Hub also have a, as you saw on some of the earlier photographs on the slide there, whole range of resources and things. So if anybody would like them specifically about the Oxfordshire County Council grants, which are county-wide, then again, I will drop the team's email address, retrofit@oxfordshire.gov.uk, into the chat, and you can just ping a message there. If you don't remember what those leaflets are, that's absolutely fine. Just you can ask for a selection or whatever might be useful, and we can do that.
Okay. And we can share those in our newsletter as well. So the links and everything. So that's great. And so David, was that your question, David, about the posters?
No, it was an answer to your question.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
On evaluation,
Yeah.
the webinar I just came out of before this was American organizers who are doing randomized controlled trials.
Oh.
So if you have a big enough program, you could pick a sample of the places you've done your infrared imaging on, whatever device you have, and visit only half of them, and then survey them a year later and see which changed between the ones you did and didn't visit. And they're doing that on a large scale to do with organizing. But of course, that only really works with a big enough sample, which means it's got to have a big enough program. So most of the ones here, it's better just to record stories.
Yes, yes. I mean, the stories are mostly I do our grant-funded projects. We do case studies and we promote them on the website and in our newsletters and things. But I'm definitely interested in a bit more evaluation. So we'll look into that. So thank you very much. And I think we're just going to introduce our final speaker, which is Martin Cattermole from Rose Hill and Iffley Low Carbon. And I think the thing that we all like about thermal imaging and draft busting campaigns is that they're both active campaigns that community groups can use to increase engagement with their communities, and the residents benefit directly across the whole spectrum of income levels, especially people at risk of fuel poverty. And I think one of the challenges maybe is how to do that at scale. And so we're going to hear from Martin now on a very exciting proposal to do just that in East Oxford and Rose Hill, as I understand it. But
yes, thank you, Kathy. Thanks for that. I'll try and be as quick as I can. But I'm going to tell you about the proposal that we've been working on in Rose Hill and Iffley with some of the people in the room, actually. We're quite keen to help develop a wider project. So what I'd say is I'll just tell you briefly about it, and then people who are interested, think it's relevant, will follow up with. You don't need to put the slide up, by the way, Kathy, just because I'll just talk to it really quickly. The first thing to say, just very briefly about us. So Rose Hill and Iffley Low Carbon's been going about 12 years. It is Rose Hill, part of the area, is among one of the most deprived parts in Oxfordshire, actually, as well. So it's great to see the numbers from Dale, excuse me, that you are getting take up for the new scheme, because that's essentially what we want to work on with people. We know that the sort of two things we're trying to solve, really. We know that it's actually quite hard to sustain volunteering in more deprived parts of communities, and actually that people don't necessarily have the resources themselves to take up some of the offers. So we're trying to come up with something that will actually make it easier to reach the right people, and also actually will be valuable as well, that will know what will happen next. So just very briefly, what we already do is that we do energy advice. That's my role in the group. We do things at community events, rather like the rest of you. We found community larders, food banks very useful, and things like our repair cafe. And we do meet a lot of people who are in fuel poverty and could benefit from all the stuff we've heard about. We offer thermal imaging and we give out materials at our events. We haven't started doing draft busting. I think partly because of some of the issues that people have raised in this meeting. So we've come up with a slightly different idea essentially. What it follows on from, for the last 2 years, we've had the luck really to have had a government-funded project called Clean Heat Streets, specifically in Rosehill and Iffley, which was aimed at getting mass installs of heat pumps. And just that would be a whole nother session. But very briefly for this meeting, what was part of that project is that anybody could get a free at-home energy survey, regardless of the kind of house they live in, whether they're private rented or anything. And we got really good take up of that. We've got 109 people completing a home energy survey in actually quite a small part. It wasn't even the whole of our area. And of those, I think over 30 have gone on to take up a heat pump, but actually a lot of people took up other kinds of measures. A lot of people actually did something as a result of having that free survey, which didn't have any kind of, you didn't have to kind of like qualify for it. It was just something that people could be offered if they were in the kind of target zone. So just very briefly, what the new project would do is bring everything together, really. It would be still using volunteers to do energy advice and to kind of meet people in things like those community events and bring people, if you like, into the process. We'd also use open homes. We've got at least 25, I think, people in our area who are willing to open up the homes. I know other groups do that as well, but that's proved very, very effective, particularly if it's really near where you live and it's someone you can kind of relate to, just to come and see what people have done in their homes. So we would do that as well. But the core bit that needs funding is we would want to offer free home energy surveys of the kind that happened in Clean Heat Streets, or perhaps what Cozy Homes already do for a fee, essentially. And those people would all, as part of their home energy survey, we'd allow time and funding for immediate draft busting measures as well. So we wouldn't need to find volunteers to do that. The person who did the survey would either do it themselves or arrange for those things to be done. So everybody who took up a survey would actually get some immediate benefit. And we know that people who take up anything are more likely to then go on and do more stuff. The sort of longer term bit of it would be we'd work with the kind of program Dale's got set up to help people navigate their way through the process, because we know there can be lots of hurdles, particularly for people in private rented housing, which we've got a lot of. Now, just to be clear, final thing to say is this is not just about Rosehill. We wouldn't look for funding just for Rosehill. We want to collaborate with people in other parts of the city, or indeed share learning with people elsewhere in the county if you want to do something similar. And the idea of that would be we'd try and get a program going that would sort of spread across really parts of Oxford that have got lower uptake of things and don't already have low carbon groups. So we're particularly keen to work in places like Blackbird Leys, I think parts of Cowley and East Oxford definitely, but there are other parts of the city who knows that might actually kind of join in with an initiative like that. So there'd be a specific offer targeted at particular areas, well, along the lines of what Dale's shown you in terms of criteria for where it might be offered. But that the key thing would be anybody in those areas could just get a free survey. With that, we could arrange that almost as soon as we meet them. They would actually get, if you like, put through a process a bit like Draughtbusters, but they'd get a paid person coming along to do it. I think I'm going to stop there because I know there's been a lot of discussion at the meeting. It's been really, really interesting. I think if anybody's interested in knowing more, just kind of shout now. We're still thinking about it. We're talking to Low Carbon Hub, been talking to Catherine at the CAGs as well, and both the city and the county council. So we're hopeful that we'll get something going on a relatively small scale quite quickly, because our Clean Heat Streets program finished in March, so we've got a kind of gap to fill. So back to you, Kathy.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thanks so much for summing that up, Martin. I think that's a really interesting one to watch. And also because we'll be having a cozy homes and kind of retrofit in-person meeting at Low Carbon Hub's office and our little bit of grass by the river on the 30th of July. And that's going to be at lunchtime with a picnic as well. And so Martin is going to hopefully talk a bit more about this project there as well. So that'll be really interesting. And I just can see that Mim has got her hand up. Mim, over to you. Quick question. Mim and daughter. You're on mute, Mim. That old phrase. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, Mim and Eva here. Martin, I'd really like to talk to you a bit more about your project in terms of who did your energy surveys as well. That wasn't Cozy Homes who did the surveys.
No, it wasn't, because it was part of the Clean Heat Streets one that the City and County Council were partners of. So there was a kind of structure that was done as part of that. I'm actually thinking, I mean, what I'd suggest, Mim, is that we do, the people who are interested in knowing more, we kind of arrange a specific session, both to kind of hear a bit more about Clean Heat Streets, because it was, there are lots of learning from it. It's still being evaluated, but we know what did and didn't work, and I think we've got to learn from that. But as I say, we're pretty convinced that the offer of surveys was one of the key things that was a success. So we want to kind of try and replicate that, but link that in with voluntary effort. We don't want to replace all of the efforts that we've heard about in this meeting. It would be complementary. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And David, you have your hand up?
Yes, this is for anyone who's interested in starting projects in deprived areas. Simple thing, come along to the Leaves Festival on 5th of July. And if you want a stall, let me know, because there's a meeting tomorrow and I'll see if we can fit you in.
Yeah, thank you very much, David. That would be amazing. Just to be clear, we're not suggesting that Rilk would come in and sort of do something in another area. What we're kind of looking to do is find other community groups who are interested in these ideas and would actually kind of fulfill the same role that we do in Rose Hill. So
we don't have a community group. The point is getting enough information about what has been done elsewhere to interest residents to set up a community group.
Yes, I think that's great. The 5th of July, the Leaves Festival. So I think we might be interested in having a stall there as well. And I think Ashley and Celia, between them, same group. So Celia, you're on mute, but did you want to ask a question? Ask Ashley and Celia.
I'll go first.
Okay, yeah.
I was only going to add that I've signed up for a thing called Visit a Heat Pump, because I have heat pumps here and I've hosted 2 people to come and see the heat pumps at my place. So if anybody's interested in that, then Visit a Heat Pump is the website. I think I've got about 70 people interested in the local area of mine, but I've only hosted 2 people so far. So anyway, it's just a way of getting people on board and showing them that it's not quite as scary as it seems.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay. I'll make a note of that to follow up. And Celia?
So, just a really simple question. We did borrow your lovely thermal imaging camera.
Yes.
Last spring.
Yes.
But I found it incredibly difficult to use. So the question is, are you running another training session?
Well, Dale doesn't know this yet, but I'm about to email him.
This is where I disappear under the desk.
He's been avoiding eye contact with me for ages over this. No, yes, we are. We'll be finalizing that probably for the autumn, and I think that one approach we might take this time is to split it into 2 sessions. I mean, all of this is up for grabs really to be discussed, but so that we have one maybe on the technical aspects of the camera, and then another one on setting up the campaign and evaluating your images, so that people are really sort of sure about how to use it. So we'll be in touch about that, Celia and everyone. Okay, thank you. And Joe.
I wondered if I might borrow 1 minute of everyone's time. We are putting in for a grant for a bike that when you pedal it powers different things that we can use at events, take to schools, whatever it may be. And we're looking to add it to our library of things. And it would really help me out if I could put a quick Google form in the chat and people could just go, I might be interested. These accessories sound good. This is the name of my group. And it in no way means that I will be contacting you saying I've got it. Here it is. But it would just really help with the grant application. If that's all right for me to share it in the chat. I promise it's a 1 minute thing.
Yes, that's absolutely fine, Joe.
Thank you very
Pop
much.
it in. And I'm just going to use the closing moments of our meeting just to flag up a couple of things on funding and resources, and that's Low Carbon Hub. Small grants of £500 are open for the whole of the financial year, so each group can have definitely more or less, definitely maybe, have one small grant of £500 for any of your projects. And the large grant applications of up to £5,000 will be opening quite soon. And so the actual date for the outline proposal is going to be earlier this year. So it's likely to be mid-November. So either the 15th or the 21st of November, and we'll confirm that actual date very soon. And that's really so that the groups can get their funding a bit earlier, and it also helps relieve loads of congestion on Low Carbon Hub Accounts Department during March as well. So watch out for those. And I also want to flag up Low Carbon Oxford North, their fantastic housewarming project, which has been running for about 2 years now. And they are putting on an event called Housewarming, a community approach to retrofit, sort of in conjunction with Low Carbon Hub, at County Hall on the 10th of July, and that's at 6:30 till 8 p.m. that night. Great, Jane. So, and loads of our community groups are interested in the housewarming project and how it's got going and all the materials that they've produced. And so they're going to share a kind of how-to, in your community on the 10th of July. So I hope as many people as possible will be able to come to that. There'll be some refreshments, and Dale is also going to be there, and we'll talk about the grant funding available at that meeting as well. So I think I've emailed about that, but we're putting that in the newsletter this week. And Low Carbon Hub, of course, we still have our energy advice materials, so leaflets and giveaway samples of things like radiator foil, not radio foil. And we have our Beat the Heat leaflet, which is current at the moment, and the Warmer Winter leaflets. And you can contact me or Mim, and we can put your email in the chat, Mim, if you want to. And then House Like Mine project as well, which was developed by Oxford City County Councils and Zero Carbon Oxfordshire Partnership, Cozy Homes, and the Low Carbon Hub. And those resources are all available on the Cozy Homes website, with lots of case studies of different typologies of houses and a whole range of measures that people have taken. So that's a really great resource to use. And then, of course, Energy Saving Homes, which was run for 3 years, which was originally a Low Carbon Hub grant project. And that will be taking part again in Oxford Open Doors on the 13th and 14th of September this year. So details are on Low Carbon Oxford North's website. And that will be like a chance to visit examples of homes that have installed a whole range of energy saving measures from, full house retrofits to just double glazing, air source heat pumps, solar PV batteries, and different levels of insulation. So that's a fantastic thing where you can, it's like an open homes where you can go and chat to homeowners who've done a whole range of things. So that's a lot from me there. So I think Catherine, the idea is to share the recording, isn't it? Which will have most of the links in, and then we can send out any others that aren't actually in the chat. And I'd just like to say thank you so much to
Can I
everyone.
say two final things real quick,
Yes,
just on the
go for
group?
it.
So one, both Low Carbon Hub and I think Vale mentioned having cameras available, and there was one other group maybe. Share Oxford also has some thermal imaging cameras that are free for CAG members to borrow. So that's in North Jericho. And then finally, if there are other ideas that people would like trainings or workshops on as it relates to this, Celia, you had one, but if there are others, please be in touch with Kathy or I so that we can try and organize those. And then the final thing is just the Google group, the Collaborate Google group does not get the energy one doesn't get used as much as some of the others. And it is a great resource where you can just pop some questions on there and get quick answers, or even, Ashley, your thing about the visit a heat pump website, like sharing resources. So I'll send around the email address that you can use to post information or ask questions or ideas. But generally, you are each other's best resource, so do take advantage of that, and yeah, hopefully that can be a resource going forward that we can use a bit more as well. So that was it for me, Kathy.
Great, thank you. And yeah, so we're hoping to have the Energy Collaborate meetings. I don't know, possibly every quarter or every 4 months or so. So we'd really like to hear your ideas for themes and subjects going forward. So that would be great. So if anyone's got a burning one now that they want to throw in there, you have like 5 seconds. Otherwise, just email us about any of them. So that would be really great. And yes, thanks so much, everybody. It's been a bit of a whiz through everything, but it's been really exciting and lots of new things have cropped up. So thank you, everyone. And we'll be in touch with the recording. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Bye
Good to see
then.
everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Good night.